AM 640. Bill here.
What have we got here? Comedian. You little scumbag. I got your name. I got your ass.
KFI AM 640. Bill Handel here on a Tuesday, June 27. And it is time for Military Monday, which happens to be on a Tuesday.
Tilitary Tuesday.
I like that. Tilitary Tuesday. Excellent. Well said, Brian. Bryan Suits, whom we do every segment with on Military Monday here on KFI. Also, Brian's shows now, Saturday from 10 to midnight and Sunday from 8 to 10 right here on KFI. And then don't forget...
YouTube. Our secret place.
Yes. All right. You beat me to it. Excellent. All right, now... the big story, huge story, immense story, is that the White House has said that it has information, evidence that Syria is about to launch or may launch another chemical attack on military targets.
Well,
and that civilians will die. So give us the background and whether this is true or not, Brian.
Well, and remember, when the Syrians use chemical weapons, everything's a military target. That 5-year-old girl with the Hello Kitty doll, military target. And so this is based on the reconnaissance done by various methods, some in space and some at 30,000 feet. But you cannot prepare for a chemical strike without significant movement of certain specific specialist vehicles. And so that's, in all, I don't have any inside knowledge, except that I know that if I were looking for this, that's what I would be looking for, is special handling. So they're seeing that at certain air bases. The Russians have reacted. And remember, Syria is just a province of Russia until further notice. And the Russians said it's unacceptable that we're calling out Syria in this way, which is Russian for, you're probably right, but we have to say something out loud.
It makes sense. And I loved it the last time around. First of all, Russia and Syria denied that the chemical attacks even happened.
They didn't happen.
And when there was absolute proof and there was no ability to deny, it was the Syrian civilians and the Syrian Free Army that bombed itself with chemical weapons.
Russian foreign policy denials sounds like the suspects in Cops. Those aren't my pants. Right. Guys, that's not mine.
And when they are my pants, you're the ones that provided the pants.
I didn't put these on. Those aren't my pants, but you're wearing them. But they're not my pants. And that's what they say. And then they fall back on, but you have no business violating Syrian airspace. Okay, so the big picture is, we caught you preparing chemical weapons. Your issue is that we're violating Syrian airspace.
Now, let's go to the response. And this is more of a political discussion. And that is effectively what President Trump has said is there's a line in the sand here. Yeah. And here's a huge difference between this president and the previous president. Do you think for a moment that President Trump will not act upon this?
I think if President Mattis tells President Trump to act, he will. And also, though President Mattis is aware
it's very funny.
That the Russians...
Defense Secretary, by the way, just pointing that out to everybody.
Well, strictly speaking, if you want to read the paycheck.
Yes.
But outside the continental United States, President Mattis is in charge, and he knows that the Russians, the number one piece of kryptonite against Putin and Russia in general, as it has been for 300 years, is bad PR. And the Russians hate looking bad in world press. And the last chemical episode 2 months ago made them look really bad. They don't like that. This is making them look really bad as well. So they're probably on the phone to Damascus, talking to Assad, saying, you don't want to do that. And again, keep in mind, they don't like Assad. They owe nothing to Assad, but they do like Syria. So whoever's in charge, they're going to back up. And so if it's Assad's monkey or whatever, his hot wife, that's what they're going to back up.
Since we have some evidence that they are going to do this or planning to do this, is it enough for Putin to say to Assad, you're not doing this, and Assad immediately backs down?
Yeah, and because if he doesn't do that, then we've thrown a gauntlet down, and we've said, go ahead, do it, see what happens. And the Russians now, President Mattis has called their bluff because he knows that they cannot actually effectively stop NATO or the U.S. Navy or U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army Aviation from doing whatever we want in Syria. We own Syrian airspace. The Russians can bluster, but they really, truly don't have more than a half an hour's worth of air superiority. They're going to lose all their aircraft. and they're going to lose 30 pilots. And they know, and Putin knows, he's assuming that Trump is Obama and that we would never do that. But he knows that if we ever went kinetic, it would be the end of Russian aviation over Syria.
Now, thinking that Trump is Obama, in my opinion, is a big mistake. This is a different animal, Donald Trump. I mean, he just goes ahead and doesn't particularly listen to his policy advisors.
No, and that's why Putin put him in the White House.
Yes, no, I get that, and it's not going to help Putin. So let's say, worst case scenario, that it goes forward and the attacks happen, and at that point the United States goes in and begins a military foray. This is no longer this isn't a proxy war. This is American forces going in, or NATO forces going in.
Yeah, this is blue on red. This isn't purple on violet anymore. This is blue on red. And if I were Assad, I would pack some bags and leave the palace in Damascus, because that's the one sure target with zero collateral damage is any Assad family compound. Sorry to be his kids or his dog or whatever, but that's the one thing we learned out of the war against Saddam 2.0 is if you want to guarantee no collateral damage and no ugly publicity, hit their house and hit the dictator's house.
So in the end, it's a force using it's like fuel air bombs or air fuel bombs or the big Moab, and it's not a quote nuclear attack, although it does the same damage.
Yeah. There's no fallout, but so in other words, we're publicly calling Syria and Russia out. They're going to back down. And you're going to hear this. You're not going to hear anything. It's going to go away.
All right.
Going away doesn't make a sound.
All right. So let's come back and talk about a couple other things. Something that you've been talking about. Women should be held to the same standard as men in the military. It looks like this is happening at Fort Benning with the Cavalry Scout Unit. And then, very interesting if we can get to this, and that is an entire issue of suppressors being used in battlefield tactics. You wouldn't think that the military would not already use suppressors.
They have we'll get to that. All right. They become cheaper in the last 15 years.
All right. We'll talk about all that coming back. More with Bryan Suits, Military Monday on a Tuesday. KFI AM 640.
KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
I'd have a little dirt on my boots, but I'm taking you uptown tonight. Might have a little mud on my wheels, but they gonna shine.
KFI AM 640, Bill Handel here. June 27, Tuesday, Military Monday, today on a Tuesday, because Brian couldn't show up yesterday. All right, a couple things we are talking about on this military segment. And now let's move to the women in the military.
Didn't show up.
Well,
anyway,
you weren't here.
That's true, technically.
Yes, technically that's true. All right. So you have always argued and said it's fine for women to be in the military, but they have to be held to the same standards.
Without lowering the standard.
Right, to the same standards as men. And up to this point, women, for the most part, during basic training and other parts of the military, were held to a lower standard. They don't have to do as many push-ups. They don't have to run as quickly. And you always said, hey, fine, if they're held to the same standard. Well, that's happening. Fort Benning, 4 women graduated from the Cavalry Scout 1 Station unit training. So what does this mean? How difficult is this?
This was my enlisted MOS. My best time in the Army was as a enlisted, what's called a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout.
Okay, what does MOS mean?
The military occupation specialty, or what we call job. But the military can't do that. It's the MOS. And it's a physically demanding job. I did it from Fort Irwin in August to the state of Washington in February. It's feet, it's walking, running. It's also a brain job. It's a very high mental category.
So this is not boot camp. This is beyond boot camp.
Past boot camp, what they do is you go to boot camp, then you transition right into your job training. And so they went right. So
if you're going to go into intelligence, you're not going to need to do this.
Well, no, you still go to basic training.
Right, but then you don't go beyond that physically.
Yeah, but you do have to master sitting and typing on a keyboard in intelligence. And so the Cavalry Scout task is incredibly complex. It's explosives, engineering, anti-armor, tow missiles. It's everything an infantry guy does, plus use your head. call and coordinate artillery,